Okay. I call to order the special meeting of the Zoning Code Update Citizen Advisory Committee for Thursday, September 11th, 2025. Could we have the roll call, please?
Selena Powell, Ray Selna, Virginia Smith, Laura Jones,
Present.
Joe Conk, Craig Backus, Robin Prudhomme Bauer, Carrie Snyder, Becky Keck,
Here.
and Alan Spence.
Here. Okay. Is there anybody that would like to give public comment? We have 3 minutes for that. Seeing none. Let's go to the next. I will take a motion for the approval of minutes to be tabled until the next meeting. Okay. Second. And so can we have a vote? Aye. Affirmative, say aye. Aye. Negative? Hearing none, that's approved. All right. On to new business. Ruth.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for your time this evening. Jessica's here. We're going to run through chapter 1 of the zoning code, which is just basically legal reasons for having a zoning code. Chapter 4, which are the general provisions. Chapter 7, which regulates signage. Chapter 8, which is the outdoor lighting code. And chapter 9, landscape design standards. So we'll go through those first, and then if we're not all exhausted by that point, then we can address chapter 3. If not, we can start chapter 3 next time, but you have it in your packet. We have extra copies up here, although they're in blue and not red. There's still blue lines so that you can go ahead and take a look at those, and we can discuss them in better detail at the next meeting.
Right. All right. Well, I don't know. So we have discussed chapter 1 before. So these are the revisions based on those comments that we've had in those initial meetings. So we can just go page by page if there's any comments you have on these. Again, we have updated the portion because we have now gotten to chapter 3, which we'll get into more detail later. We've updated some of that in terms of what the zoning categories are. And so those are in there. They're still highlighted depending upon our results from discussing chapter 3. But everything else has been updated for the comments. I don't believe there were that many comments in chapter 1 to begin with. But if we can go page by page, or does anybody have any, because we've already discussed it, comments from chapter 1? Yes.
The conversion table, which is under section 1-0540 zoning districts. I'm wondering how these districts jive with what's on the county's website, and do we become incongruent to what is there, and how does that then if we update these, how do those updates get put onto the Yavapai County GIS system? Which is a technical thing, but I'm just curious how that. Oh.
I have the same question with Flora, and then I also have the question of, is it our intent to also update the general plan? Because they're in the general plan, so this would trigger an update to the general plan. And also, like, there are things that aren't in the chart that are listed over here and vice versa. I didn't know if you
Can't hear.
So the conversion table is simply simplifying what you currently have. It doesn't have any, it doesn't change anything with the Yavapai code because you have your own code. But for instance, it's just taking all the standards that were in R1L and RS3 and just combining those standards because they're very closely related into one district. So you're simplifying. So those standards that were previously in there, they just kind of go into one district. And then the same with the R1, R1A, those are become R1, R2. So you just had a lot more zoning categories than were necessary because you had closely related districts. And so you'll see in chapter 3 that the minimum lot use, the minimum lot standards and the setbacks and things now kind of mesh with those. So nobody's going to be not in compliance. They'll just have the least restrictive zone in there. So it'll match. As far as your zoning categories, the land use categories, I'll have to see how it's written, but it could be a simple text amendment for the general plan. If they're specifically listed in there, with general plans, I typically will say, zoning categories such as, and then you can say, but not limited to. So that way, as you change your zoning categories, and update them, they still fall within that land use designation. So just saying, but not limited to, and it is a text amendment in all those land use categories would fix that issue right there. So you wouldn't be in non-compliance with your general plan.
Mhm.
They are what? They are what? It says are what L now, and we're taking away that. How do we get that all up?
So we just coordinate that with the mapping cartography. They can make those changes.
It's not in the chart, and is it because it's not being converted, and light industrial is in the, there's not in the chart. And it has. One more. Oh, those are the ones right now. So I just want to make sure, once we accept these changes, it's not correct, so.
Correct. Yeah. So since this original chapter 1, that's a good catch. Thank you. We did talk about that. So central business we were discussing putting it into commercial, but I believe we had talked about keeping it as central business. So that one needs to come out. And then the light industrial was added after the fact as well. So we just it is in the chapter 3, but that needs to be put into the chart. That is a new district. So that one needs to be taken. This is taken out. No, there is no currently light industrial. We want to create one. So we want the opportunity for there to be a light industrial district if someone wants to come in and rezone it to that. So it gives them opportunity so that it's not, everything's just not heavy industrial. And so that way you can better designate stuff around the railroad or the tourist areas and things like that.
So section 3-010 is probably a more complete.
Yeah, that's the one I've done most recently.
So, okay, and so, because like, I'm on the county GIS site, and my house is zoned R1-A. And so the town would work with the county to change that to an
Correct.
R1. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the reason? Why are we?
You have quite a bit of zoning categories. It's just to simplify it for anybody coming in and staff. And then also you had some that were very close. Their setbacks were matching. They were within, a couple of thousand feet. And so it's just to clarify, to simplify it, give more opportunities. It's really just a cleanup, and then certain districts went into with permitted uses, as you'll see later. It's just to clarify all the things that are in there. It pertains. It's the same single family detached kind of thing is what we're looking for. And then the same with them as the density goes up. So you'll see more of it. You'll understand it better in chapter 3. Unfortunately, it might be easy for next time as well to have a clean and a red line version of chapter 3 because it is such a hodgepodge of cut, move, paste. It was just a lot of moving around stuff.
So we started saying, oh, it's gonna be easier, cleaner. When it will constitute several more projects, changing the general plan, coordinating with the GIS. So I just want to be cognizant of that, is what might look cleaner here may not be cleaner on the implementation side, so.
Well, with the general plan, I'll double check on your implementation strategies and see that process. Depending on how it was done, it might be something you can do in conjunction with the zoning code update. I mean, it would, if it's a simple text amendment and that's the way it's written, we can do that in the same hearing. It would be a very quick, easy fix. For the county?
Right, so then once, if we adopt this table, so we send that description to the county and they convert it, they have all of the, and Gus probably has the layers as well, that, so that we can send them the layers for those districts and say, this one is now this.
So this is up to your town attorney, how you want to deal with it. So technically, you would not actually be changing the zoning. You would leave the existing zoning, but if they were to come in for any development, if they were to update their property, they would follow the standards under the other category. So
Under the new category.
under the new category. So you're not actually, when you do code changes like this, because exactly like that, you're not getting authorization from the property owners to change their category. You kind of have like two codes in tandem until people phase out. And that's just, I mean, I've seen jurisdictions with three codes in tandem. But you can get to a point where you just say, we're updating everything. But if people were to come in and say, I have this zoning, you're like, oh, good, now you're going to follow this.
All of us will look at GIS, see what zoning is of that parcel, zoning will not accurate. So until it actually changes hands, then it would change on GIS.
No, because changing hands doesn't constitute a rezone. So it's up to the town attorney how they want to interpret it. This is why code overhauls are different in that way. So the only way to actually change the actual zoning is for an applicant to come in and file a rezone application. You can you can ask if people want to do a townwide and opt in to change. And everybody can just sign a waiver saying, yes, we agree to this, to that change. The big point here is that there's no property right taking. There's no Prop 207 issue because we're giving them the exact same permitted uses setbacks that they already have, if not greater flexibility. So there's no takings in the way the categories are working here. It just has to do with when they want to develop or expand, or they come in for an accessory structure or an ADU or something, they would just follow the new code, what it's called.
So it's essentially combining these, like R1, R1L, and taking those two, and they both have the same district. They both have the same description now. And because like, is it R4 and R4A? There is, right now, there's no land zoned R4A. Those are mobile home parks and mobile home subdivisions, and they are virtually identical. So a lot of these districts have very few differences, right? So rather than keep them separate, putting them together makes it one less district you have to look up. One less district, one set of rules for, now we have one set for all of the mobile home parks, mobile home subdivisions.
Guys are all here for a reason, but, you know, from an administrative standpoint, the whole point of doing this project was to make it very clear to staff what we need to do in a situation. There's, you know, as you're going through this, you see there's a lot of contradictions and things that aren't in line with current law. But what I'm hearing with this, and Jessica and Reed, what you're saying is that I'm interpreting, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're not gonna have two zoning things, that we have all new staff coming in on your retirement, couple months. And we're now having two parallel universes, and they're gonna be looking back. I don't know, I'm leery about that, and I'd love to be reassured by developers or villagers that that's not confusing for people. I guess my point is, the cleanup that you're trying to do, is it going to clean up and make life more and easier? Or are we just gonna complicate things that we now have two parallel zoning maps and two parallel zoning codes and?
So what we have now, a lot of these zoning districts, we have literally two parallel zoning districts with two different designations. And the manufactured housing is the best example of that. So we have manufactured housing subdivisions, we have manufactured housing parks, we have manufactured in R2, R4 and R4A. They're literally the same. There's no reason to have two separate districts. The only difference off the top of my head is that in R4, we allow campgrounds. And we don't in R4A. Right, so putting those two together really is not going to create that much difference, because you already, when you look at that chapter, you're looking at whether or not the unit is in a mobile home subdivision where they own the lot, or a mobile home park where they rent the lot. That's the discerning factor between those two. And it really doesn't make sense to have two different descriptions of the same things in two different chapters.
Yeah, a lot of the districts currently are duplicate. They just copy the exact same verbiage and are putting it in the very next chapter, in the very next chapter. It's the same exact thing over and over and over again. And so by combining it, it's just, these apply to all, this applies to everything, and you get rid of the miscellaneous like little things afterwards. So they just all mean the exact same thing. Because that was the difficult part when it as a developer coming in. If you're looking at that and you're like, I don't know which one I'm supposed to go in, because they all allow the same kind of thing. Like, which one am I supposed to go? And it didn't really matter which one they went in. And so some people would pick one and some people would pick another, and it didn't make any difference, but they all followed the same, but they're all just different zones. And so by doing this, it's a clear designation of, I'm looking to do this size lot or this mobile home or this commercial. I need that zone. It's very obvious to them. And so with the permitted use table and the setbacks and the development standards table, if you want to build this size lot, it's very obvious you go in that zone. It's not up for interpretation, because that's the biggest problem you have with zoning codes. Like when you have transition, is people will interpret it differently. This is very black and white, as this is the category and this is your lot size, these are your setbacks. And if you want to do differently, then, you can go to a different category, or we put the PAD we put in this chapter because it's where it should be, because that's for any deviations to the zoning categories. So the goal is, like you're mentioning, when you have transition in planning departments, you want the code to be interpreted the exact same way every time. We don't want gray area. The difficulties you're talking about happens in every jurisdiction. You'll look on different codes for other jurisdictions and they'll say, this code, anything in these zoning categories apply for anything rezoned after this date or utilized after this date. And then they keep the other one kind of in the background and said, these are for existing. If you have this zoning category and you don't want to change it, you still have these categories, or you can opt in. Lots of people do opt-ins. Okay, you can, as you come in, you want to follow that standard or the old standard. But but for instance, like a rezone, you would never allow people to rezone to the old categories.
I'm trying to help kids. I don't like the idea of, look at the old code or the old map, and some people are on the old, some people on the new, because we don't have that now. We have everybody.
Right.
Here. So, I'm trying to think of a way to accomplish what it is you're trying to do, but not create this.
So legally, you cannot get rid of the old code until every zoning category has been rezoned.
What about R1, and then maybe like a parentheses, encompasses and then
Mhm.
so that in this code, it's clear that if you're zoned five, R1, R2, whatever, you know, R1L, R1B, R1, that you have these rights. I mean, I just feel like just removing them, I'm just, again.
So that's,
I think
that
it-
you're the
Mhm.
people are gonna be
Well-
left and trained and interpret how we're gonna do it.
I do think it is complicated, because unless you say to the whole town, we're rezoning everybody, and this is your new zone, which, you know, I see the horror on Craig's face.
Like the idea of simplification, sure. I think
Yeah.
It's gonna be a little painful maybe for a short term, but in the land, I think it'll make all of our lives better.
People would talk into the microphone.
A lot of the confusion.
Yeah, and I guess one of the examples you just gave me though makes me wonder, are we oversimplifying? Because the manufactured home example you just gave, I feel like there's something that's very different than somebody who's building a manufactured home where somebody rents a lot, and somebody who's building manufactured homes on lots that people own. And those, sorry.
You're, just in comment to that, you're not allowed to differentiate between for sale and for rent in code.
No, I'm not necessarily saying, well, I guess technically one is renting a lot and one is.
So just to clarify that point, the issue.
Somewhere else, sorry.
Right, no. So to clarify that point, the descriptions for mobile home subdivision and mobile home park are in R4, right? And in R4A.
They're both in there.
They're both in there.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like we're taking the two,
Make
right?
it one.
Yeah.
But you're putting them in the same place. Okay. I understand that.
So I'll go to the map, will show.
The map will stay the same, right? Because we're only changing the text. If we decide to, if we rezoned everybody, we would have to change the map. If we're only doing text amendments, all we're doing is combining R4 and R4A, right? So the title would be R4, R4A, and one set of regulations.
So when someone comes in and says, I have R4A or I have R1A, they'll look here and also in the zoning district that mentions previous kind of stuff in there in the very beginning of that is also, there's also the table in the beginning. And they'll say, well, I have R1A. And they're like, okay, well, here's the AR1A. Now I go to chapter for the R2. Now I go to the R2's designation. And that's where I find my standards. That's all that is. It's until people start changing their zoning, which is going to take years. I mean, it's going to take a long time for a district. I mean, some people may never change their zoning category. And that's just a hardship that happens statewide, nationally, everything because of the issues of taking, you know, and forcing someone else's property to change. But I have had jurisdictions that have done that and said, they'll offer, like I know Queen Creek did it actually. They offered, said, hey, we are doing this update. If you want us to change it, you opt in. And therefore, if you do it within the first, we'll do it within the first year of the code update. There's no fee to the property owner to go for it and the town will initiate it and it's assigned and done. You know, so that's an option that they did to try to speed it up. Rather than having to wait for people to come in. But then after that year, it was up to the owners to pay that rezone fee. But it's just unfortunately something that happens because of the law of property rights. Correct.
I mean, I'm just trying to envision how this helps. If the map stays the same and your zone change is the same until you change it. I'm just trying to understand it. It's really that helpful to warrant the confusion that cause, but if it is helpful, I'm all for it. I'm struggling to see that.
A lot of levels, and it's nice to mix it up.
Right, yeah. I see there was used to be an R1 and now there's R-1. I could see people getting confused there.
Yeah, and then those district titles could change to whatever. We just picked R1, R2, R3 to just show the increase in density. It was trying to say like low density, medium density, high density. You could change it to RL, RM, RMH. You can change it to whatever you want. It's not really contingent upon that. So we were just trying to find something that was easy to understand the transition of what kind of use. So anyway, that's something to think about. I know that's why we didn't start with chapter 3, because we'll never end discussing chapter 3. But so that's the discussion. I mean, we can think about it more. You don't have to have an answer today. We will get, if we have time today, we'll get to more chapter 3 discussing it again. And then we fully intend, especially the next meeting, will probably be all of chapter 3, just discussing that and diving into that a lot more, because that is such a different change and what's going on in that.
You want to go to chapter 4 now?
Yeah, were there any other comments on 1?
In section 1-080, general provisions,
Mm-hmm.
section D, does that sentence, does the last sentence end correctly? Does not conform to the provisions of the ordinance and which is not prohibited by some other ordinance, such manner or use of purpose may be continued. Is that period there?
Continued as a legal non-conforming use.
Okay,
It should
mine
have-
doesn't say that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Oh, that's all.
Anything else? Okay, and we'll come back to that table again with chapter 3 because they're closely tied together. So we'll come back to that with chapter 3. I have chapter 4 there. So chapter 4, general provisions. I know we've gone over this a couple times as well, but there's also been changes in here. And you didn't do the ones you were talking about today in here, right? They're
No,
not in here?
no.
Okay. So there is a change in chapter 4-020, 010 accessory structures. We are getting rid of that, correct?
So what we're going to do is put rather than have it in chapter 4 where the average person does not look, we're going to put these all in individual zoning districts where people do look. So when you are buying a piece of property or want to expand your home in an R1 zoning district, rather than having to go to another chapter to find the details on putting a shed on or building a garage, those details will be in the actual zoning district.
Problems. I'm struggling with this one a lot, and that we have a zoning code with a setback, but then we allow vertical construction of, and state law doesn't allow you to not prohibit ADUs, but that's 5 feet. But, now we're saying 3 feet. We still have to set the zone, so I thought the
Yeah.
house is side yard setback, but now we're allowing people to put something 3 feet. But by the way, the eaves go farther, I mean, if you want to tackle this one when we get to where you're moving it to, but this is one that I have a lot of concerns about. It's been to the Board of Justice, and we saw it, and the mayor sent in her notes concern about this 3 feet when you have, you're on a 2-acre lot, and you have the anticipated setbacks, and now an accessory structure, you put it right on the lot line. I really am concerned about this, and it's one of the things why we put up to look at this and see if that's really what we want. I'm anxious to hear what the benchmarking is with other communities to allow this. Just, I've never seen it before, and this is my big city, but it just might not have ever come. So.
Well, this, like we've discussed, strictly speaking, you know, this is a taking. If we decrease that or increase the setback, it's less developable area on the lot. Now, the side note to that is people have a limited amount of time to come in. They have 3 years to come in and say, hey, no, I want these setbacks. So that's one way to mitigate those people who want those setbacks. The problem, and the problem is that this is carried over from version to version to version. This is the way it, and I know it's not a good excuse. This is the way it's always been. This is what we have been left with as staff to try and deal with. So I don't disagree that there needs to be changes to this. And I think, as Jessica and I have discussed, really the best way to address this is in chapter 3, when we get to those and talk about setbacks and not allowing construction in the setbacks.
They allow, again, the ADUs allow
Mhm.
choice, but I don't know, I mean, I've not seen this, I mean, maybe we're gonna have this conversation, just now sharing it with you, but you know, for me, if I buy a house and I think I have 10-foot setback from the neighbors, and then all of a sudden I'm doing something 2 feet for me. But no, that doesn't feel kosher. So I, you know, so give some thought to that when we get to 3. I really want to discuss this. I mean, the mayor and I had a conversation about things. And, you know, I think many things could do this. You know, we just have to decide this really is that worth the risk to protect people's, you know, feeling that they're getting something taken from them by building in the setbacks. So I'm hoping we can reach out to other cities and see what they're doing on that, if they allow that, and we can setback. I don't know, Craig and Ray, don't know.
Setbacks are, they're small, I think, because of the tight subdivisions that we have that are existing. Somebody wants a shed or something like that, and no room. Then when you have a setback that's too large, then it stops the ability to have an accessory structure on your lot. The bigger lots, that's not usually the problem, but they're usually limiting the height of those accessory structures.
Mhm.
Sure.
10 to 15
Yep.
for accessory structures. So, right. So in other communities, what they typically do is they do have a reduced setback. So you have your main building setback, and that is for your primary structure. And then accessory structures, which are detached, typically also be required 10 feet separation by building code. They are allowed between 3 and 5 feet off the property line. And they have to be, and there's a maximum square footage, there's a maximum height. And then if anybody wants to go higher, then they have to meet the main building setback. So that's when you get like those casita type pool house things sometimes that they go like 2 stories, but those are in the main building. So that's where you get your sheds and things like that, or like your gazebo, and that's to allow those types of things. And then with that, they also have to be, the 3 feet reason is to make sure that they're not, there's no rainfall or coming onto the adjacent property, things like that. And then there's also regulations in terms of utilities that can go there, you know, like an accessory structure shall not have full kitchen, you know, because then that's a dwelling unit. That's an ADU versus an accessory structure. So there's different things that go into place, but typically there is a reduced setback for the accessory structure, specifically because people are using it for, you know, chicken coops, dog houses, clubhouses, you know, things like that. It's not meant to be a big accessory structure. Some jurisdictions will restrict it which is difficult to enforce and I don't like, but some will say you can be the accessory structure's total can no longer be bigger than 50% of the main structure. So they can reduce it that way, but then it incentivizes people to just build bigger houses so that they can have a bigger accessory structure. And it's like, it goes back, it's chicken and egg kind of back and forth. But the bigger way people just regulate is by lot coverage maximums.
And that's what we do, is you have a maximum lot coverage and you can't exceed that maximum lot coverage.
3 feet from a lot line, regardless of what zoning is, regardless of my setbacks. And like I said, we've had a board of adjustment meeting on this, we've seen it in the community, and it's pretty egregious, and you're right, Craig, in the small lot neighborhood. I mean, 3 feet is, there's lots of stuff 3 feet, houses are 5 feet, so.
Yeah.
You can't.
And the setback, it's much like worry about the height. Cause if you're gonna have a 6-foot fence and you got an 8-foot shed, okay, so you're like, you're losing 2 feet of visibility, let's say, or you're looking at. And you don't want that 15-foot tall garage next to that lot, that close to the line.
And that's what
That's the one you're gonna worry about, feet. So if there was a way, I think that's where accessory structures are allowed within that distance, but they have to be under a certain. And then as you get into the larger ones, and sorry to complicate that, but
Yeah. So with the larger ones, the issues become animals. And so other jurisdictions have put in restrictions as far as, stables, pens, all that kind of stuff. Large animals have to be set back a greater distance from property lines due to, smell or different things like that. And so you can always put that in there as well. The other thing, I mean, you have your code, but if HOAs have their own, like for instance, in my neighborhood, it's you could have accessory structures, and I do have one. It's probably even, I don't know. I'm not going to say it on the record. I didn't put it in. It's really close to the property line, but they put, Home Depot shed. But the requirement is that it needs to be painted the same color as the house or the wall, and then it is not visible from the street, from the front of the street, right? And so there's those kind of things, because it's like 1 foot over. It's like instead of a 6-foot wall, you have a 7-foot shed or something. And that becomes the difficulty when it comes to heights, is what is sold prefab at Home Depot or wherever else, and what you can just get. And then you also have to be careful about where it's measured from. It's measured from where it's placed, not from the adjacent property. If there's like retaining walls or different things like that, because sometimes it may look larger than it actually is, but it's on a grade, a sloped grade or something. So there's all kinds of fun things that I just brought up, but so that there's ways to address it, and it's just, but what it does is it gets more detailed into the accessory structure, which we can do in chapter 3. Or if you want to put a certain minimum standard and then let the HOAs deal with it as they come in, because those are more of the smaller lots that come in. They're, have their own CC&Rs and stuff, and just let them deal with it. So that aren't currently, yeah. Yeah.
I'm really agree. Talk about that before, it's so out of place that, when you're doing due diligence, you buy a house, you think, okay, I have to step back, I think we're in a totally separate area of code. Oh, I can put something, this is really a problem, not only once that.
The accessory dwelling structures, are there things in this section 4-020 accessory dwelling units? Are there things that we are statutorily mandated to have?
Yes.
Yes.
So what are the statutorily mandated things?
That's what's in there. The 5 feet, and exceeding 15 feet, and it talks also about the 2 detached, 1 accessory. It talks about the number of units.
So all those things that are
Mhm.
highlighted are
Statutory.
Mhm.
statutory.
Like, so that, I mean, I read that, if that's the word you used in state law, that we could have a greater for different zones. Or does it
I'll
say-
double check that because I know there's some jurisdictions in lawsuits right now. But it's because they're enacting it exactly as state statute, right? So I'll double check on that one. Yeah. And then with this one, like I said, there's, it's my understanding, City of Phoenix is under a lawsuit right now because someone built exactly what they asked for. And so I would anticipate in the next legislative session, there might be amendments coming up as well because of these issues, because someone did the 2-story house basically right next to the 5 feet from the property line. So, I mean, stuff like this too, I envision that it will be up, after even this gets updated, I envision it will be updated again per state statutes, yeah, until someone stops, yeah.
They're limited to attached or one attached. I just
Yeah.
double check, 'cause that
That's
looks like it
true.
should-
That's true. So I think that one needs more information on that one. That has to do with lot size. So they're allowed the 2, and then the third one is allowed, I think, if it's over
I think it's
30?
75K pops.
35,000 or 1 acre or
I think it's 35.
35,000 or something. We'll double check on that, but we need to add the detail on the lot size.
So in theory, they're saying as a blanket, this is true, but we can put into our code, I'm just trying to make sure I understand this, that we want you to have a 10-foot in an R1, we want you to have a 10-foot setback and a 8-foot height. I'm making up numbers
For accessory or ADUs?
for ADUs. What,
It just depends on what the state law says, and I don't feel like what's. I read that quite a bit when we implemented it. I just want to make sure we're replicating the lake. Protect our residents' investments.
But- because the way
And we
I
can add the
read-
statute number too.
because the way I read this, they do not exceed 15 feet in height unless specifically listed herein or within the zoning district standards. So if in our zone, R1 zoning district standards, we want it to only be 10 feet. Is that how, am I
Oh, it had
interpreting
to,
that right?
it had to do with historic district. Is where it has to deal with. So there were certain exceptions that they put into place for,
But
but yeah.
it's not just within a zoning district standards, like each of our zoning districts, we get to make our own standards.
Yes.
Here's chapter 3.
And you notice on D, they tie it back to main building setback. If it's gonna be. Unless specifically listed here within the zoning district standard, so we can make a lower, it just can't exceed it. And this is the state law wording, we don't
Yeah.
have to let it be 15, I mean, I'm not, I don't care, but. We do
It's kind of
have to
tall.
be flexible. And it also gives us this located within the main building setback. If we want to do it taller, then do it in your setbacks, you're not affecting your. So I think this
Mhm.
section needs some more.
Okay.
You guys love it.
No, you're bringing up
No,
great
no,
stuff.
but this is good because like I'm thinking of the house that's right across the street. Right? They have a 2-story ADU in the back. Right? But when I think about it, I'd have to go look completely, but it is not, I think they kept the setbacks from their neighbor. So they're set back from the neighbor this way. They're on the alley this way. And currently we can build to the alley line. I don't know if that's changing. Like, so they're to the alley and they've got their setbacks on either side. They're not going close to their neighbors. They just went up. So like that.
That would be the nice way to be a neighbor, yes.
Yeah, no, I think they were trying to be very considerate and
Yeah.
I don't know, Gus, maybe you were around when they built that.
Yes, I'd like to look at, I would look at the staff report from that time,
Mm-hmm.
see what the height is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think an ADU should be a completely different category than a shed.
Yes.
Well, one is a living unit, the other is just storing your stuff in it. And usually a shed can be really small, it can be tucked away, all of that. But the ADUs are just a whole nother animal. And I think they should be treated within standard setbacks on whatever that property they're going.
Right, yeah. And then you can allow for a variety of height that fits in the standard setbacks.
Right.
I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure we're supposed to allow 5 feet. But I'm gonna double check on the wording because that's been going across. It might have been just incorrectly typed in there or we were working, I don't know, but, because every jurisdiction has done the 5 feet and every jurisdiction's fighting it, which is why the lawsuits are happening. Because they're implementing exactly because everybody wants greater than 5 feet, but we can't. So I'll double check that and I'll get back to you guys on that. Actually probably could look it up, but right now, but it's, but yeah, we'll double check that. That also needs to reference, the state statute too, because that won't change regardless of it. So we can always just add per state statute. But yeah, and then we'll add the lot size stuff in here. It might even just be easier just to say per state statute because it's going to be changing again. But yeah, because right now they don't restrict, they don't require parking and all that kind of stuff either.
I know it's a little
Yeah.
odd, but we have to deal with it.
Yeah, so we're fixing the housing problem one pain at a time, so. But yeah, we will look at that. Thank you for bringing that up. It's definitely, we need to fix that, and make it clearer as what is required. And we're not gonna make them do any, if we can get larger setbacks, we would request that, so.
Bed and breakfast establishments. I'm sorry, did you have something else on that, Guthrie?
Yeah, so that one we cut apart. It was a long list of stuff
I think we had 5 different classifications of bed
Yeah.
and breakfast.
and they're all the same. So, yeah,
They have either they hired to operate that bed and breakfast. I don't know statutorily, if that's something that stand up.
I'll double check on that because, it's my understanding that if it's not owner occupied, it becomes a hotel. But I will double check on the statute of the definition of that. If it specifically states that, and if it doesn't, then we can take that owner occupied out.
Does it become just a short-term rental then?
Well, no, because they would be rooms, and bed and breakfast means that they provide the food and kitchen services versus an Airbnb kind of thing.
Campgrounds and RV parks, we went through this one not too long ago and did quite a bit of updating, so this one didn't get too much. Didn't get changed too much, just some language cleanup. Did anybody have any questions about that one? This is why we don't let her come to meetings.
She needs to know how to enforce it and stuff.
Why, just or whatever. Well, I know. It says cameras and
Which portion? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
campgrounds in the zoning district. I mean, in the PAD zoning district.
They would be required to get a PAD in order to construct a campground.
Right. What's the financial insurance?
To make sure that they build everything, that their sewer and water gets built and connected. We require that for all commercial development. Yeah.
Anything on flagpoles? That just looks the same.
Fences. I think is next.
Fences, we added information about just swimming pool fence height for adopted building codes.
Do I believe that was one of yours?
Is that a type of?
Questions?
2 and a 2?
Oh, yeah.
Page 9,
A, 1, 2, 3. Yep. And then 3,
8, and 9.
4, 5. Okay.
What-
20.
Last what?
No, we're on page 10. 9, 10, I think. Oh, the agenda, the whole full bucket. So we're talking about fence wall heights. The use of barbed wire, that one?
Oh, that's for campground.
Oh, okay.
So on it, under 6, B6,
Mm-hmm.
it says the parking spaces at the drive shall be best in service to a pet shop, similar hotel, and maybe in a tandem design, but then under C, it says the drives have to be paved.
We can say improved. That's just a standard term. Some jurisdictions consider pavement to be pavement or DG with stabilized surface. But we can just say improved to a minimum. Is there any other in campground?
And this is that on one of these developments, on RV park, like say it's the one we have down the street, it says that I'm interpreting this as you cannot put a fence on your property line, you have to have fence 20 feet back from the property line.
Right.
Yeah.
So what that says, the purpose of this is so that we have adequate buffering of campgrounds from adjacent residential uses, right? So you'd have a 20-foot landscape buffer and then the wall.
This is for campgrounds, not RVs,
Yeah.
parks.
Campgrounds and RV, you know, it's a
Well,
campground.
well, campground are not like the park, the mobile home park.
Right, no.
We just adjacent to residential did not require. So I'm more to the takings thing, like we just said now 20, but I guess if you're doing a PAD.
If it's a PAD, right, we can, those are the things that we can require.
And there are setback requirements for residential next to commercial. So you don't just build right next to each other. There are landscape setback requirements existing. The wall on the property line.
Well, for instance, there's a project upcoming where we talk to the developer about, look, you need to be able to adequately buffer this from the adjacent uses, the adjacent residential use, rather than build your wall on the line, please set it back here and then do this. And they were perfectly willing to do it. So.
And this doesn't dictate what kind of fence somebody puts up? Because I know when the RV park on Broadway got put in, that I was on something at that point, I don't remember what, but the conversation about the fencing and could they put a fence, would they put a fence? They only put a chain link fence. The neighbors wanted a solid fence.
Sure, we can add solid wall to that.
Yeah, I don't,
For
because
campground, you
that,
mean?
in that case,
Or you could
because
do a
we didn't
slat.
say, we didn't have in the code what kind of fencing
number
that
is
it
that?
had to be, they put up a chain
of
link fence.
Solid wall. Or
Solid green fence?
Wall or fence.
So we can change that to solid wall.
Yeah, or it doesn't have to be a wall, but a solid fence versus a chain link.
So no slatted chain link,
Yeah.
just to be clear.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else in campgrounds? Anything in flagpoles?
Setback.
Well, the issue with that is having them fall onto adjacent structures. And they're generally taller than houses.
Especially in Clarktown.
Right. All right.
And so if you had made your change of the number, and then, so fence wall height, were there any other comments on that one?
Are you talking about section,
4060?
yeah, so you're allowed to put a chain link fence in your front yard?
Which number are you talking about?
I'm just looking under 2A.
Oh, okay, minimum 80% open, chain link split rail. This is arguments.
No, I mean, not pool, but,
Wait, fence wall height.
No, it says following building codes. Building code would restrict
Fences for
that.
swimming pools, so that number 2, fences for swimming pools shall follow adopted building codes. So there's a whole section of the,
That has to do with fences in general.
that's fences in general, that's.
Building code has specific pool requirements about self-latching and all kinds of things.
No.
No.
Oh, it's
okay, so
confusing.
you're allowed to put up a chain link fence in your front yard?
Unless you're in an HOA and they prohibit it.
That's what?
Unless you're in an HOA and the HOA docs prohibit it. The CCNRs.
You currently allow chain link?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. if
So it's
full-
currently allowed?
Any other questions on fence? All right.
Hazardous materials hasn't changed. Home occupation standards,
I don't think we did anything to that
we
one.
just changed the parking to from off-site to off-street.
Anybody have any questions about that one? Home occupations? Going once? Going twice? Miscellaneous projections of an architectural, it should be an architectural member. So this talks about generally
Bay
parts of
window-
your house that stick out.
Bay windows, fireplaces, things like that. Church spires, it mentions in here too.
So do we have any questions about architectural projections, comments?
Like, sometimes the setback, but now you could circumvent the setback.
By adding an architectural feature.
Something that sticks out, you said like a big window or, I just kind of question.
Porch.
A porch wouldn't qualify because that's a structure.
Right.
These are talking about architectural things. So it's like exactly like a bay window or the need you need for like the backside of a fireplace, things like that.
If you put exterior trim on your house, that's considered an architectural member. No, eaves are not. Only the other things. Right, bay windows, trim. Would you consider them?
Trim, yeah, they stick out
Okay.
a little bit, but the thing is here, it also requires that they can't project more than, they have to be still 3 feet from the property line. So they can go into the setback, but you can't still be closer than 3 feet. So I mean, you technically usually wouldn't, but sometimes, you know, it also needs 3 feet for clearance to get around and walk around things for fence lines.
Are we good with that one?
I guess I'm just not familiar with the term architectural member. I thought. it
We can
meant
just say miscellaneous
somebody who's
projections.
joining.
An architectural enhancement, maybe?
Yeah, it just seems like
Because it's meant to be, it's not like, it's not a, yeah, it's not supposed to be something like the floor plan actually extends, you know, the concrete. It's supposed to be just a piece of the architecture. So we can just change it.
Architectural features?
feature, yeah.
Feature.
I mean, I just, the term member doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
I thought it was Joe joining. membership, so-
It's Joe's left arm.
Mhm.
But what I'm not understanding here is, so why are we allowing somebody to project in within 5 feet of the property line? And then secondly, then that has to be 1 hour, 2 hour rated or something like that, because it's within 5 feet of it's 1 hour rated. It's
No, because you're maintaining 3 feet on your property and they're maintaining 3 feet on their property.
5 feet from your property line. If you're within 5 feet, you have to have whatever that, if it's a wall, glass, windows, anything.
Not
has to be
building to
1 hour
building?
Rated.
I
That's-
thought they were building to building for fire. Not wall, property
No,
line.
that's just straight building code.
Right, with building code, I thought that's what the fire rating is. The 3 feet plus 3 feet, it's 6 feet fire rating.
Right, but it's from your property line.
Right, but if you have 3 feet and they have 3 feet, you get 6 feet.
Oh, you're saying 5 feet from each property
Feet
line?
from each property line. Yeah, and, right, if the zoning says you can do it, you can do it, but that wall now has to be built with a 1 hour fire rating on it.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if anyone's even watching for that.
So your suggestion is to push this back to 5 feet then?
Yeah, it just seems that we're allowing some feature to just encroach on your neighbor.
Okay. All righty, we'll change that.
And then noise, we took out a bunch of stuff, right?
Yes, we did.
Because it's in the city code, the town code,
Right.
and it was, nobody could understand it the way it was written here and it's in the code already, so.
Right, so this
So-
entire section is going into town code because it's not just us that enforces it, it's also the police. Right, if we're changing it, yeah, so listed below is going to be, is set forth in town code.
We looked at it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I thought you
Where
mentioned
is it?
they could
Where's
pour
the-
concrete at 4 AM.
Yeah, didn't,
Right, that's different.
so
Oh, here we go, yes.
noise, see? Didn't we just
Yeah.
change that?
Yeah, but I think this was printed before we made that change.
Which way?
Um,
Violating,
Yeah,
5,
at 4.
at 4.
so that's before sunrise, right?
Yes.
Okay.
not Watkins.
Yes. Off-street parking and loading. True. Mm-hmm. So we did quite a bit of, we meaning Jessica and Parker, that's what I was going to say, Spencer. Parker did quite a bit of work on this section because we have had projects come in for which we have no parking standards. So we went through and expanded the list of parking uses and standards quite a bit. We who, the town? I think we are. Right,
Mhm.
that's. Right, so that's a very good point, Selena, that there's public streets down there, it's public parking, they're not reserved for the homeowners, so anybody can park anywhere and walk to the park.
Yeah, I'm gonna think about right here.
Right.
Comfort.
Mhm. Right. Yep. That's for commercial pool. That's the whole thing, the deck and the pool. No.
Are these use categories in here in any specific order? Are they they're not alphabetical? Are they in another order that,
We had them in residential and then they went to public and then they went to commercial. We can add another
little
thing,
subheading?
yeah.
Just because I'm like, what am I looking at? Passenger terminals.
For residential, this is my home. You need 2 parking spots on the property that I own, or 2 parking spots on the street that blocks my.
It's meant to be on site, but it, as mentioned, you can you can line out. I know in certain jurisdictions, they've done that too, where they just say, okay, these, do you have enough, if everybody were to line out their street for the house and they don't have parking, will you have 2 spaces per house available on the street?
So your situation's a little unique. So people who live in Upper Clarkdale and Lower Clarkdale, the historic district, those garages were all designed for 1 car, if they have a garage, right?
Like you don't have a garage, but you have 2 parking spots. I have a garage. I only have 1.
Right. So that's why the public parking on the street is what would count for your second parking stall. So no, you're not limited. These are just minimum. So it really, this isn't.
And this code also, anything, and we have a section in here, in the other section, we talked about grandfathering. So anything that's not in compliance, but currently allowed today is not in violation. So you would not be in violation moving forward just because you don't have 2 on site.
The staff has. Car washes, give staff.
Okay, so under vehicle sales, you're talking car wash? So this is, maybe that we should put that some more manual car wash. We couldn't have one for automatic car wash, which is more the staffing.
It's just staff.
So you want 2 stacking distances per bay?
Staff. Staff. To say you don't have to sit there and have an actual parking space for staff.
Right.
Staff.
Room to,
So we would need 45, basically about 45 feet per bay of stacking distance. Anything else in parking? Guthrie, anything else in parking? Okie dokie. All right. 4120, parking lots and driveways abutting residential districts.
Page following the chart.
Exempted areas? Yes, that's a historic district. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Cycle parks. Depot, Walmart, all that. And what about like compact cars? Do we ever deviate from these? So we don't allow motorcycle.
So typically, when it comes to motorcycle and compact car spaces, they don't count towards your parking requirements. They're kind of like extras that developers will put in. You can get into detail, but they typically will not count, you'll need like 2 motorcycle spaces equates to 1 parking space, or you can't have more than 10% compact car spaces, because everybody's cars are getting bigger. So you can add things like that, but most jurisdictions, they do not count them as towards the required parking. They're kind of like just extras that they put in, but it's up to you guys. Or if they've got a weird parking lot and they've got some extra space, they're like, motorcycle. Mm-hmm.
Street parking. You're saying that it's 300 feet the point of use. I know some cities are contiguous or, have to be touching. Are we good with this space? I don't really have any opinion. I just want to make sure we're aware of what we're saying.
I'm sorry, where was that?
3A
Location standards for off-street
under,
parking.
yeah, over.
3A. Oh, there it is. Okay. Well, no wonder I'm confused. This is supposed to be 4.
This can equate to shared parking.
Right.
Or maybe for the downtown area. Yeah, but sometimes this equates, I've done these in other jurisdictions for shared parking, for like strip center, when the parcels, because sometimes they have to be, the parcels get weird sometimes in commercial centers, and they cut them up so they could just sell the building, but not the parking lot kind of thing. It's weird stuff like that.
So on this page, loading requirements says 2 and it should be 4. Which is why I couldn't find the 3.
Oh, gotcha. That doesn't, okay, that's the last one.
Any,
Especially there's no driveway, so the shared park or shared access, of course.
Mhm.
I'm just curious how we implement shared parking. I mean, if a business comes and they want to build, and how do you determine what their number of spaces is going to be required? If they're claiming shared parking.
So shared parking could be a bunch of different things. So like with the shared driveway, obviously you're reducing curb cuts and things like that. But sometimes they have excess parking based on their use, they don't need it. Or otherwise, sometimes shared parking also applies to if you have a use that have offset hours. So something's a 9 to 5 and then something's an evening use. And so that's how you kind of agree with that. But I mean, you can encourage it, but it's also up to the property owners to agree. And I've had developments where they did not agree. And so they just are like, that property just kind of stays in limbo until someone changes their mind or, agrees to it. But that's where I've seen it used.
And store sells, that guy's like, hey, no, I need all my parking, but we pre-approved this other development.
So it's an agreement. It's a documented agreement. And so when they do that, in order to get the shared parking agreement, they have to first prove that that first business has ample parking in excess. And has to have that agreement in place. And that's not something that the town really goes into. That's a personal recorded document for between the operation, like CCNR type stuff. And so they have to prove that they have extra parking and then how much they'll use. Cause most of the time they have some parking on site. They're just using like, 10 more spaces or something else to meet that requirement. If they sell it, there needs to be something in the document that they record also, but then they've also agreed to how many spaces they're getting. So whoever buys it has to understand that that agreement is in place still. They can't then force that other business out because now they need all the parking. Say so, yeah.
Right.
It's on the owners.
It's like it's like a shared driveway agreement or a shared well agreement, that's kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, who maintains and have to pay into it and all that fun stuff. Yeah.
We already did that. Oh, did we do part?
So the loading requirements, is that going to be section or number?
Or it would be
four?
number 4, yes.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on parking? Parking lots and driveways abutting residential districts.
Yeah.
About shielding and non-glare.
This like Dollar General on that side. Right,
Mhm.
they had to build that fence there, that wall.
Yeah, right. So that the lighting from the commercial use is not impacting the residential use.
And the headlights, yeah.
Okay, so we're good with that one. Section 4130, payment by owner of professional services deemed necessary by town council. So this one we expanded because it was limited to just the building official. So, right, so we expanded it to building official, community development director, public works director, or the town council finds it necessary to use the professional services of any person in connection with review and approval or acceptance of any lot, structure, or performance standards. Said services shall be paid for by the owner of the property under consideration. Yeah. Yep, we can do that. So the purpose of this is because the best example I can give you is a town engineer. If we don't have a town engineer on staff, engineers are not cheap. So if somebody comes in with a large project that requires a lot of engineering review, then the developer has to pay for it.
Should that be noted in here, town engineer added? Just because I could see somebody saying, well, we asked you as the community development director, we didn't tell you to go to the town engineer.
We require it.
But I'm just saying, is that,
We don't have staff
Right.
no,
costs.
no, I know. That's why I'm wondering if that should not be more explicit here.
They're used to seeing this kind of stuff. They know, developers know that when they
So
come
the-
in.
the use of- So the town engineer would be the professional services then?
Correct.
Got it,
Sometimes
Okay.
we'd have an architect, sometimes we would have, right.
got it, I got it.
Should we change, you mentioned you want to remove the council part, but say deemed necessary by town manager?
Oh, we
Versus
could add
council?
you.
Okay. Right, okay.
Right. Rear yards, okay, good with 130. Rear yards in business and commercial zones, loading and unloading. So this talks about loading and obviously when we have issues, this really comes into play when we have commercial uses adjacent to residential uses. That's really where this is impactful. Like Dollar General, Olson's, those kinds of places. Do you have any comments on that one? All right.
And then the marijuana remain the same.
I don't think,
Recreation and medical.
the
That's the
500,
one I got from Batania.
right, the 500 feet for the, daycare centers and that.
Not be located within 500 feet of a nonprofit.
Oh, no, it's supposed to be daycare center, not nonprofit.
Okay.
Yep.
Several cases. We refer to the department, for example, marijuana establishment and UC license by the department to operate all the home. Who are you referring to?
Department is a Department of Health, right? Yeah.
Department of Health Services.
Whatever it is.
Arizona Department of Health Services.
If you say it, it's a lot of this part. I'm like, is
Okay.
that you or is-
No, I'm not doing that.
Arizona Department of Health Services, okay. Then renumber all of those.
Right. All of the marijuana rules. Okay, so now we are all the way up to page 30 of 41, which is section 4-160, reducing lot areas, unless anybody else have anything about marijuana, of course.
Shall be a total maximum 1,000 square feet.
For 8 and 9, or what are you talking about? Which, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it should be 25 instead of 2.
Yeah. Yep,
It should be 25.
25.
No, we've been expanding those. It's been an issue with too small of lobby areas, so people spill onto the streets. Yes.
Let's see. No, actually, I think the new law is 500 feet, not 15.
So was 6, when it talks about the nonprofit, was that the?
Let's just strike that one altogether, because I don't think
Okay.
we have,
Okay. So then those numbers become, okay, the numbers, okay. Okay.
anything else in marijuana? All right. Reducing lot areas. That one's fairly straightforward. Anybody have questions about that? Sidewalk cafe permit. What's,
I guess. Question. That's one. that I haven't given. Or is it like a CUP if there's a problem?
I think that was the original intent. I don't know that we, what's the fee, Gus? $90? Yeah, that's nonsense. And I think that this is one where we can just, it's not worth it. Either you're going to follow the rules or you're not. And if you're not, you're going to lose it.
So just say a permit?
Yep. Anything else for sidewalk cafes? Craig, you can now advertise on your umbrellas. All right, I think now we're on to golf courses.
And site
Oh,
visibility.
state
That
visibility.
was just
triangles.
added to clarify, and then golf courses.
Right. Standards for golf course development. So that's section 490. I'm sorry, 4190. So we've had quite a bit of discussion about golf courses. The genesis of these regulations were when the Freeport came through with their PAD quite some time ago for what did they, I've even forgotten that, Verde Ranch across the river.
Mhm.
Correct. And so based on my read of this, the town had 0 golf course regulations. And so we've rewritten this because the old ones kind of threw everything but the kitchen sink at regulating golf courses. And it wasn't clear, they were kind of contradictory. So when we first discussed this section, we decided that we were going to go get some new language, and Britannia went and pulled in language for golf courses that were more current and actually dealt with the issues that were concerning to the commission. So that's kind of where we left this. I know the mayor had questions about requiring the use of effluent. I know that it sounds like a good idea, but I think we have some technical and public works related things that can cause problems with that. Guthrie, do you want to elaborate?
It's a little bit of a struggle to say, okay, it's close by, of course, but if it's across town. I mean, let me just say an example. Say Yavapai College wanted to do a golf course on their, they've got lots of property. We don't have anywhere near them, Cottonwood does, so it's probably not an example, but that's my only concern about requiring the use of that, when I think saying encouraging, but I like the idea of it. And then the other thing was this thing about not reducing the aqua permit, no, it's a measuring that, so I'm really concerned about sending that as a standard. Selena.
Yeah. I guess I would. Right. Like a golf course comes in, and it's not close to parts of the facility, which you say like, well, you need to connect, but you are required to do that. Because if there's some development that comes in, you might ask them to, oh, we need to connect to this one, so we pull the connect over there. If you have them, they can connection. Why can't we do it close by?
Usually there's some distance requirements, so like Craig, on your development, we were not within the distance sewer, so he was able to put septic because he's outside of the distance that we required it. So I was using the Black Hills area because it is so far.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, we have it under design right now to get to the cemetery, but I mean, it's millions and millions to get in it. So if we're trying to just say we don't ever want a golf course.
So one of the, so B3 talks about the applicant to demonstrate that the proposed development will be of the appropriate size and scale that it is reasonable or appropriate to generate sufficient effluent to reuse. So that would be like a self-sufficient, but I don't know at a golf course you would even generate that. They just tacos at the clubhouse. I don't know. Like, but I mean, I think you could put in here.
The golf course had its own on-site wastewater treatment plant, like it had its own package, then it would be creating its own effluent, right?
Yeah.
Well, not in our case, I don't think, but there's
So-
probably some big resort that is creating.
Yeah, I get, that's the thing is I don't believe you get golf courses really anymore. You get master plans tied to the golf
Oh.
course.
Right.
And then they use that for.
Right.
The golf
Mhm.
course.
But that's assuming that they're building a neighborhood around it, that a golf course itself does not generate it.
Right, yeah.
So maybe what we do is like what we did with campgrounds, and require that if you do a golf course, you have to do it, it has to be done as a PAD. And that's where we have the ability to negotiate. It's tricky.
And really, I feel a little bit about how expensive.
Snooze, you lose.
What's that?
Just snooze, you lose. You lose. I'm kidding. No, I think I think it would be good to put golf courses in a PAD. Then you can talk through like recapture, rainwater, like there are things that maybe using effluent isn't the best thing in our particular instance, but there may be other things that we can do on a golf course to make sure that the way that they're designed and the way water flows and, you know, all that kind of stuff there. So I think there's a lot that potentially could be there. Selena looks skeptical.
And then the reference to the AMA, I know you're just trying to get something. Weird that we don't
Have an AMA.
Which was it? What number is that?
That's number one.
Right, we
Oh.
use that because the requirements for a golf course and an AMA are much more stringent than if you're not in an AMA, anything goes.
Be a little bit like. That's like, they have to work at it
Uh-huh.
to.
So I think like you mentioned, if we make it a requirement of a PAD and then leave the the use of effluent, because then they have to like figure out the whole, how do you get enough effluent so they don't have to tap into anything else, you know? I think that would cover it, make it difficult enough for them. It's a thoughtful project. It's not just thrown out there like, I'm gonna make $1 million. So
In the section where it mentions turf grass species, is there a table like in chapter 9 or someplace that gives some
the species,
on what the best turf would be? Or-
No, because I think that's up to the golf course designer. The requirement is that they have to use something that's low water.
Okay, so shall be drought tolerant. So they'll come to you and with their plans.
Right, if they come in and they want to use like Kentucky bluegrass, no.
Okay.
Oh, see, okay, that's so change. We negotiate that. I'm just so a bit worried because it's completely, maybe that's the answer, but I just think, you know, every effort.
Do you have to put in here what the elements of the PAD are? Or is that determined on case by case basis?
That's chapter 3.
What?
well, it's in chapter 3.
Yes, chapter.
Yeah, it's in chapter 3.
It is. And they want to do that golf course. They have surface water rights, so who are we to say you have to use effluent if they have the surface water?
Would this be a PAD deviation they could do? Is this a section they could deviate from?
Yeah,
So that they could deviate if Freeport said, I've got other options. So,
right. I think that the intent here is to, like you said, make golf courses difficult. And when you say encourage the use of effluent whenever possible, then there's one of the developers here in town had a landscape architect who fought us tooth and nail on every single thing. Well, I made an effort and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And that was it. And yes, fluffy language.
Yeah, there's
and
no
as I
teeth
said,
to
we'll
it.
Think harder.
yeah,
Right.
yes.
Exactly.
They don't like. Water. I mean, they're a desert. almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Their whole fairway is desert, and then they just have, they don't even have an artificial turf creek or.
Yeah.
Which probably would be cheaper for them in the long run because there's no maintenance. Right. Right.
using fresh water.
Yeah, well, there's restrictions on the amount of water with golf courses now at the state anyway. They can't, even the ones that are existing can't even get approved anymore, so.
All they're gonna be is building a golf course here soon.
Helps. You say you have to use effluent, and then they were gonna do artificial turf, like.
Well, I guess that would be part of the PAD, because in the PAD it gets super descriptive of all of the details, and they would state, if they're using artificial turf, they're like, we'll use effluent for some of the trees or something like that, but the turf, they like, it's not required, so we're meeting our effluent requirement with, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, and again, the beauty of the PAD is that gives you that flexibility, because if they are close to it, we can say, look, it's only a quarter of a mile to effluent. Now you have to connect to the effluent. If you want the recommendation from staff to go forward with this, we need to see some effluent use. Whereas if it's, on the other side of a river or on the other end of town where there is no effluent, so sorry, you're going to have to figure out something.
And
Yeah.
Developer said we're not going to use fresh water to feed the grass or the plant.
Right.
Yeah.
But we have the word required to use effluent, so now we're trying to force them to use effluent somewhere when they don't even need it. And then, no. It costs down and it's a form of developer. So now we just lost potential recreation asset for no reason.
Sure.
So it's still required for.
Do you want, all right, we can take required out.
And put back encourage or,
I'm sorry?
That's why they're not gonna use water.
we could say what we require when, I know turf is now fake, right? Turf is
Pretty
considered fake.
much.
So require when grass or, natural landscaping is utilized.
There you go. That's good language. Any,
Yeah,
Yeah, they don't do it though.
watering.
Yeah, there's a difference. Like
Right.
there's what Arizona grounds that you've probably heard of, that massive, they have all turf. They're irrigated. They've never irrigated them once. They don't ever turn it on.
The rest. That's the.
Yeah.
No, I just think that's why the PAD says all.
right, exactly. You're not tied to one set of rules.
Yeah.
All right, so we can clean that one up.
Mhm.
So just so when we go through and clean this up, there are some sections that we may want to consider keeping. So like section D, community access where appropriate, the golf course development shall incorporate passive public access, perimeter walking trails. You want that out?
Now. Provide access to the public, I don't know. Again, that's a negotiation in a PAD. What do you want to put
Great.
in trail for everybody?
All right, we'll address it that way.
Which one? Just scratch it?
Yeah.
or-
Guys are.
I don't disagree.
I like the idea of it. I don't know.
It wouldn't be required if you already have your property there. You don't have to cut a hole in your wall. That's what but it's for new properties.
But I don't think, we don't have a golf course.
I think what we want to encourage is the most effective and efficient use of our resources. And so whether you're a golf course or you're a mini golf course, which is what I'd really love to have. We want, no matter who it is coming, we want people to use, whether you're building houses or a golf course or, a drive-in movie theater, another thing I'd love to have. I think, we want to encourage the most efficient and effective use of our resources, whether that's water, power, you know, whatever that is, roads, streets, you know, those resources that every kind of developer is gonna use. And I just think that's,
You know, maybe they just wanna keep the grass in their 2-year-old.
I'm just warning you though, us hackers, if you're anywhere in place within, you don't want to get hit.
We rented a house next to a golf course and every Saturday, 3 or 4 times, you would hear the ball hit the roof and roll down, hit the roof and roll down, hit the roof and roll down. It's, I don't advise, of course, maybe a 2-year-old could throw them back over the fence at the golfers, but
Big structure, we're just sitting here talking about not wanting to be. Not do water, now we're telling them plant trees.
let us go back and redo this section and clean it up. I think we've gone from old regulations to too much regulation. We need to find some place in the middle.
you have to find our.
And that's what I wasn't saying, oh my God, because you're talking again. I'm reading some of these regulations and I'm like, oh my God.
Well, if we never had anything, then.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that we're going to stop and calculate the electrical conductivity of water. So, all right, so that's golf courses. Are we on to 4200 now? 4200, storage of materials. Okay,
I have a question on that.
yes.
So where we take our recycling up by the school, it's, those dumpsters are an eyesore and they're like plain view. So, I mean, does the town have to also follow this section? So they'd have to, keep.
No.
Is that our recycling or is that's the?
Not ours.
Right.
I mean, technically, usually city, and I never say this, but I'll say it if you ask the question. Technically, cities don't have to follow their own codes. We always try to because, of course, if we think it's the right thing to have a code, we should follow it. But that's a good one. I don't think everybody's thought about this.
Yeah, right now, how are we going to implement that? Okay, anybody have any other comments on storage of materials? Okay, swimming pools.
So where do you come
Where is it?
to? Says change.
Oh, no, it should just,
Mhm.
yeah.
So you should put like.
No climb.
Softball fence.
Right.
Mhm.
So why don't we just say if it's a commercial use, it has to be in conformance with adopted codes?
Building code.
Yeah.
And hot tubs don't count.
No, hot tubs don't, you don't have to fence your hot tub. Temporary uses and anything else on swimming pools? I think that answered the mayor's, the 3 feet. Shall not be. Well, and that's
We
again,
had 5 feet, right?
yeah, it should be 5 feet.
But it needs to be 5
Yeah.
because of digging and shoring up the pool. You get closer than that, you're gonna start having collapse.
Any pools.
Above ground.
Mhm.
Fires. I just vote.
No, I know.
Requires the same things.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yep. Right, commercial pools shall be, fencing for commercial pools shall follow.
Be in conformance with adopted building code.
Yep. Temporary structures and temporary uses. Anybody have anything on that one?
How many we've got, so, in another city I worked in, there was this one vacant lot, and basically every week, this business had a whatever on the lot. So the town I worked in had you can't draw more than, 10 or 6 or whatever it was per year. I don't care, but I just want to think about how, like, it almost becomes like another business there, but without the actual brick and mortar.
Gotcha.
So, but does this apply to like temporary structures when they're building something?
It would apply to,
Like a
if you have
construction
a,
office or?
right, yes. Yeah, it would apply to a construction office. That's how we've used them in the past.
Which it definitely can take more than 30 days.
Right.
So that's why you get the extensions.
So that's why we give them extensions, yes.
And it has to do with compliance as well.
Mhm.
Here, okay.
So does this apply?
Sure. Any temporary use. If it's non-permanent, it's temporary.
Students every single month or every week. I don't know if it'd be okay.
We'd have an example of that sort of pattern.
There's
Up
like
at the
about,
old high school. Market.
Who sends out? Oh,
12.
Are they there legally? They have a temporary use? Oh, okay.
I mean, probably. I think about the mobile home park, you're coming down Main Street, within, for months, one coffee shop or something is there. Like, every time I drive, I think, oh, it's not really the rural temporary use permit. It was there like every day forever.
So one way I've seen them do it is, so for instance, on 4, it says temporary use permit shall be issued for a specific time period not to exceed 30 days. We could say up to 4 times per year. And then we could also add a line that says temporary use permits in conjunction with a building permit shall be permitted as long as the building permit remains active or something like that. So that way you're covering like the small temporary stuff, but then you're also covering the construction office for something that's taking long, as long as the building permit's still active and good, for houses or for commercial or whatever else.
And then for things like the marketplace, we would use, that would be a special use permit.
Mhm. Is that the difference? Is like a food truck a temporary use or a food truck is a
Food trucks, we have very little regulation over anymore, remember?
right?
We can't prohibit them on public streets anymore. We used to be able to do that, so.
So like Christmas tree, all that stuff, that's a special use permit? Or
No,
temporary?
those would be temporary.
Okay. So
But
you could
because
say,
it's a recurring event at the old tennis court, that would be a special use permit. It's just like the concerts in the park and things like that, where you hold one a month.
so
Think of it on 89A, and that every single month we had, some kind of pop up, something. I'm fine with it. I just want to make sure you guys are, because in past lives, I found that be a real contentious issue. Like, wait, I had to build the building, but this person basically has a business going in a tent because it's a temporary use, and they can get a vote for an over and over. That's kind of.
So the other thing with that one is, I know in Phoenix, they do that. They will say up to 4 times per year per site. So that they can move other places, but that parcel gets, the the fireworks stand, the Christmas tree lot, the pumpkin stand, the other fireworks stand. And so that considers there 4.
And then anything over that, you would need a special,
You would need to go more permanent. Yeah.
You need it, right, a
but like,
permanent stretch.
if somebody, like, you know, if she was only doing the market 4 times a year, she could have a temporary use. It's only 4
Mhm.
times a year.
Right.
If she goes over the 4 times a year, then you need a special use permit. Is that?
That's a special event, so we're talking about a special event permit. So it was,
Once we normally process our, and this is my beginning of the, but I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to think about on the vacant parcels we have around town. Are you okay? Pop up store all the time?
no,
Well, maybe I'm getting the terminology wrong. Special events to me is different.
Like a fair?
you're right.
Perhaps public, normally we don't call a special event. Although I have been in cities that do, it's usually like spring break from 10,000 kids, but I mean, generally, like, we process special events, it's on public.
Right. But like the temporary use. So the woman with the market, she has what kind of permit? Maybe she doesn't.
No, because that's private property.
But it is temporary use.
Mhm.
So,
Not that part.
let's say 12 times a year, but then it's pretty much.
Once a month.
I don't,
Every week. That's.
I don't,
So you could say it days. You know, you could say.
It'll be days a year.
But what if somebody else comes in, they want to ask fine, but they want to do like 12? And then you have every, almost every other week, there's a switch off between 2 people.
somebody's selling honey, somebody's selling rugs, somebody's,
Right.
continuously, I don't think we want that.
Which is very. They come on through temporary uses and whatever business, some people don't mind that at all, and probably one of them, but on my experiences, when it happens, I start getting complaints, so most of my comments today are based on past lives.
And that actually, it's valuable experience because I've never had an issue with that, but clearly you have. There are things I've had issues with in the past that you have not. So,
Yeah, is this a solution for a problem?
no, I think this is a solution looking for a way to define it. So maybe I think limiting it to a number of days per year rather than events.
Or. So very, I mean, it's nice sense of more ambivalent, so maybe, like, worst way you're seeing, we leave it for now, and then if we start getting a lot of complaints, we go back and put some definition to. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Always clean it up.
Okay. We're good with that. All right. Section 4-240.
30.
What did I
Tiny
say?
houses.
Oh, 30 tiny houses.
Don't we have a minimum square footage required under the 500%?
So the tiny homes, we reference, let's see. Maybe we took that out.
Right, compliance with IRC Appendix Q regulations.
Yes,
That's the number A1.
right. Well, that only talks about permanent foundations. But yeah,
Oh,
the,
size.
but it should talk about size with IRC Appendix Q as well, because that defines tiny homes. Right.
Don't we have minimum square? So I just want to make sure we're not contradicting.
We have minimum lot sizes, but not minimum square footage for homes.
A maximum that you, square footage that you need before you need a building permit?
I'm
Is
sorry,
it 10
say
by
that
10?
again?
What's the building permit? The minimum,
Square feet.
Oh, 120 square feet for a
10
shed.
by, yeah.
Eh, Yep.
But a tiny home has facilities, so therefore it no longer, it still needs.
It's not a shed
yeah.
anymore.
Because we don't find that. We don't define what the size was. So, I mean,
We had it in here originally and I think we got a little overzealous and took it out.
But I mean, what would you, I mean, there's ones that are 600, 300 feet square, I
Yep.
mean,
I think we were at 4 was the max.
the minimum? Or the the maximum of a tiny
Right.
home, okay.
I don't want somebody building 3,000 square feet and saying, well, this is my tiny home. My other one is 10,000 square feet. Right.
Or like a foundation size, like, because some of them are 2-story, but they're tiny. So we had, you said it was maximum,
I think it was maximum 400 because I think the minimum in IRC is 700 square feet. Am I right?
I just can't remember HGTV right now.
Right. That's the minimum house size you can build is 700 square feet, but that's building code. That is not zoning code.
now if that's C and you have to have 700 square feet, now in this C, you can go for the tiny home and do 70.
Yeah.
Well, what if it's not 700 feet?
700 square feet is the minimum size for a residential use. Right. So if you're building a stick-built house, the minimum size is 700 square feet. If you're doing a tiny home, right, it's only 400 square feet.
Difference, I know, but my question is this, because a tiny house must be on a permanent foundation
Right.
in compliance with our IRC Appendix Q regulations. It shall have wastewater system size for the occupancy, fixture count connected to the town's wastewater system.
So how you,
What makes a minimum build different than a tiny house? Because I would think, like, if I'm building a 700-foot ADU, it also has to have those things on it. So are we, you know what I mean? So should our minimum size, because we're not talking about trailers, we're not talking about recreational vehicles, we're not talking about things on wheels that can move. So should our minimum size of ADU that you can build be 400 square feet? You know, like this feels like we're creating a category I'm not sure we need necessarily.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, what makes a tiny house different than an ADU?
So,
No, just think about
That's my question.
what makes a tank different than a primary structure. So if I come in and I want to build a house on a vacant lot, and I say I want to build a house, Bob's gonna tell me it has to be 700 square feet, right?
right. Or it has to be a tiny, or it has to conform with. No, it does. I know you don't think it
But we
makes.
have the definition of the size of a tiny.
I think we have it in chapter 2
Oh.
because I wrote this.
Because that to me makes a difference, and I'm not sure construction wise this matter if a house is 400 square feet or 700 square feet or 1,100 square feet. You still need to, at this point, follow the IRC Appendix Q regulations, which I'm
Right,
assuming-
which are, so appendix Q is specific to tiny homes.
Okay.
I come in, I think, Bob, I want to build a 600 square house on my R1 lot.
Mhm.
And he said, no, you can't because we have a 700 foot. minimum." And as I say, we'll call it a tiny home. And he's like, okay, is that right?
No, So if you're gonna call it a tiny home, it has to be fit in the tiny home. The definition of tiny home and the standard set forth in Appendix Q of the IRC, that's a tiny home. Well, so a lot of the things talk about access and egress, right? How do you get in and out of the thing? Does it have to have fire suppression? How big is those are the kinds of, what kind of appliances does it have for cooking? Those are the kinds of things that Appendix Q talks about. Is it a fixed? Is it a on wheels? Do you have tiny homes on wheels?
Is there a size designation in there?
And where?
Appendix Q.
In the appendix Q?
Let me go back and look at it. I'm pretty sure there was a size restriction, and that's how we ended up with what we had in here before. Yep.
I just feel like the difference, it's just tiny homes, a small home.
Yeah.
Well, that was-
I know Bob says that because he said it.
Yeah, so I hate to keep pointing out our neighbors, but our neighbors on First North built an ADU in their backyard. I think it's less than 300 square feet. It's like, and is that considered a tiny home?
No,
It's an ADU.
right. So the tiny home would be the principal structure on the lot.
Oh,
We also. That's a standalone in R1.
Houses applies to houses that are 400 square feet or less.
So IRC says you have.
400 square feet or,
But
right.
if I wanted something smaller, it's called a tiny home and then it's.
Then it's allowed, but it can't be any larger than 400 square feet. Yep.
That are 400 square or less.
So the wording under A1, does that mean that the foundation has to be in compliance with it, or the house?
The whole
The whole
thing.
thing.
I would say, I would
It's not
add,
clear. It's not
I would
clear.
say permanent foundation and in compliance with IRC Appendix Q, so that you know it's both.
So
And then I would also say,
Right, exactly.
yeah, I mean, to me, it just feels like, should we
Yeah.
just say the smallest house you can build is 400 square feet, period?
Well, because they also have tiny houses on wheels, which
But
people,
that's-
Mhm.
right, no, I
It's
know
on
that,
that B.
but this is when this all came up in the first place, right? They wanted to have tiny houses on wheels and use those as permanent residences. We said, no. If your principal residence is going to be a tiny home, it is going to be on a foundation, you're going to have sewer and water connected. It is going to be a tiny home. It is not going to be any sort of thing on wheels because,
Not that.
right. Yeah. You should ask Doug the genesis of this.
No, it just seems like, since we're missing 500 and 600 square foot houses, not that I think there's gonna be a lot of them built, but if we're essentially saying the smallest house you can build is 400 square feet and it has to be built to code for my shorthand, then that's it. And if you have a house on wheels, that's not a permanent structure.
That's just out of,
That's not a permanent structure.
but we have this weird gap. Yeah, you can build a 400 or whatever,
Yeah, but you can't build a 600.
unless you call it tiny. I mean, this is weird. Let's look at, you and I, let's look at the cube
Mhm.
together and maybe that makes some sense somehow, but right now, so.
Well, I think another thing that we ought to consider here is that we have different neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods have very small lots, some have larger lots, and the value is very different on those. And how is you go into a neighborhood that has large lots, very, very kept up and everything else, and now somebody puts this little tiny thing on a piece of property in there. That's what I find odd.
That happened years ago in our area, which is, zone R1L. Somebody wanted to put a tiny home, up there. That was not well received.
Because most tiny homes are 225 square feet, falling between 100 and 400 square feet. And the maximum size can vary depending on if it is on wheels or not. If it is on wheels, you can get a little bit larger.
I feel weird they have different rules based on what you call your house. If it's a tiny home, I think a little smaller, but if it's a home, well, you need to look at, you would see if this makes sense. Maybe that to you guys if everything goes.
Because you could still build a 700 square foot house in a neighborhood of 2,500 square foot houses unless there's something, unless there's something in the deed. Right?
Oh, that 300 feet's just everything.
Make it an ADU.
Saith the architect. So talking about the tiny homes again. Frequently in planning and zoning, there are things that pop up that are all the rage and you have to go regulate them somehow. And then after a while, you go back and look at it and why did we do this? This makes no sense. And that's kind of what's happened here. This was all the rage. Everybody wanted to build a bunch of tiny homes, tiny homes, tiny homes. We had nothing regulating it. Nothing at all. So that was the genesis of this. And I will agree that it is ridiculous. These are the standards set forth in IRC is the 400 square foot. No,
It's
400 for tiny homes. Appendix Q? Yes. IRC separates them too. Right. Yep. But we make them be attached to a foundation, so they are in fact a house rather than. Yes-ish. We'll talk about that in chapter 3. All right, so now what are we up to?
Traffic and pedestrian accessibility.
Yeah, you're right.
Then I wonder that, under vehicle circulation, I just wondered if anywhere ASHTO standards should be.
So that's going to be in town code. That's part of the engineering standards.
Just have one of these that we're dealing with right now.
Which one?
We don't.
Number
require-
one.
that was the other thing that should be required by law or not.
There are minimum trips per day that trigger a letter versus
Mhm.
full-blown TIA. So we do say in here and constructed to adopted town code, so that would include engineering codes. Anything else on traffic and pedestrian? Mm-hmm. B2.
2D is in dog.
Where it is necessary to safeguard? Okay. We'll reread it. All right, anything else on vehicular circulation? Okay, wireless communication tower. A lot of this is regulated federally. I think the concern, again, this is when wireless first popped up. Nobody wanted a corridor of, you know,
Is it a designated corridor right now?
no,
It was at the
it
time?
was. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that would have done it. So you can keep it or you can leave it.
A view shed corridor? What?
89A, that's what they-
Yeah.
Putting back, they wouldn't allow. any-
Oh, that's the old overlay district.
But there was a lot of issues with that, the heights of everything.
Yep.
Setback off of 89.
We took care of that.
So what is
My guess is that's what triggered a lot of that to begin with, because I think, was that the one where you guys floated balloons, Gus? Oh, yeah. So let's see, we can take that out.
Or do you want to leave it and it's already in there?
Well,
Have you
we-
had many people apply for that?
Okay,
Because then you know if someone puts it back, does it again, you'll have another corridor go up.
well, that was my comment. Yeah, that was one of the
Because when you guys weren't here when we went through the cell phone tower.
yes.
On Main Street. And one of the things I know as a community member that I asked, they kept coming back pieces. Right, and they'd say, we need a tower here, and then we need a tower here, and they were up at Jerome needing a tower there. And I think for me, it was like, could you come back with a comprehensive plan? Can you look at this in our service area and see where it is that your towers are going? Because you're telling us, we have to give you this, we have to do that, we have to do that, but we never got clear information. So I think this desire to sort of say, where do you guys have towers within 10 miles? We actually want to see where those towers are to see if what you're telling us is actually true. Because nobody thought they were being fully transparent. And it was very hard to get answers from them. And they kept doing things piecemeal. They would come back and ask for this and ask for that, and then ask for this and thing. So I think that's where that comes from. Or maybe, I know for me, it's why I would want to see what do you really have here? Because you're telling us, you know, this fatalistic story of, you know, nobody in Sycamore Canyon is gonna have phone service. Well, nobody in Sycamore Canyon ever had phone service. So, you know, but it was all that, there was a lot of pressure to sort of acquiesce to them without asking a lot of questions or without a lot of pushback. And so I think the community was just like, we want to know what you're really trying to do here and what's the true story and what's the true picture.
And if other jurisdictions require that as well, so it's not a big deal for them to provide.
Yeah.
It's just a map they just put up.
I'm fine with that then.
Do you want to get into the design of it at all, or what? The
Yeah.
fake tree look?
Yeah.
I think we have one of the best I've ever seen. Rusty pole out in the industrial area. It was, to me, that was a lesson to like, they can do whatever you want to do. Like, we said to them, we wanted to blend in to the industrial area, and they built us a giant rusty pole that if you didn't know what it was, you would have think it was a giant rusty pole, but and so to me, that was a sort of like an aha moment.
And as soon as one of the residents saw that additional pieces were put on, painted, we reached out. We did them up.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of, you have to let us do what we want to do attitude when this stuff was going on, and that.
Gotcha.
They're
That
usually
explains the
pretty good.
rusty tower. I'm like,
What?
I couldn't figure out why on earth there was a rusty
Cell phone tower.
cell phone tower.
Because
That
it
makes
looks like it's
sense.
always been there.
Yeah. Okay, now we're back to yard encroachment, which is different than architectural members or architectural elements. And frankly, I think we could lump both of these together, don't you?
Hmm.
Architectural features and
2
yard.
feet,
encroachment.
6 inches extension. Yeah, they kind of could be landing over the comfort. This has to do with front porch also.
Yeah.
1/2 lot width. Unroofed stairs. Project beyond said 6 feet. of roof railing.
Well. If these things can't exceed more than 2 feet and 6 inches in, does that help us with our setback issue? Because then they wouldn't go 5 feet into the setback.
It says into the front yard.
Oh,
These other ones make sense 6 feet.
But we could, we could get rid of that other section and just say here, cornices, canopies, eaves, or any architectural features may extend into any yard for a distance not to exceed 2 feet 6 inches. So that means that's all you're getting for an eave. That's what you get for your, whatever curly cues you're gluing on your house.
But that's only front yard. That's not
Right, but we can,
fireplaces and
right,
bay
but
windows in the back.
we can say in any yard.
But that won't cover then your front porch or, which isn't down below, your front porch or staircases.
But we talk about those separately, right? Because A just talks about cornices, canopies, eaves, or any architectural feature.
Okay. Well,
I see what you're
but
saying
then,
about
but then
fireplaces.
this has to do with front yard. So if you talk about. Yeah, we just say a setback.
Setback, you know, your foundation, setback. All of a
Right.
sudden, somebody's got something that's protruded out, or hanging out the side, and it's hanging out, and can leave it out, that becomes an issue. I think that's what this is trying to address, some weird feature that's can.
Yeah, I think we can combine that.
The foundation, that's bigger.
What section is that?
That's what they're trying to stop or restrict. Has to be something there. If we don't have something in right in there, then somebody's gonna have something sticking over their neighbor's fence, you know, because
Right.
they wouldn't, there would be stop that happen. So unfortunately, you have to have something like that, that limits it and something that limits it again. If you can simplify it, great, but
Okay,
you gotta have something.
I'm
So
fine with it.
We could merge.
Yeah.
That was my.
The setback for the structure is gonna be, I think, the smallest one I've ever seen, it's pretty much 7. You know, for residential, it's tight, you know, that's, so then you're gonna hang something hanging off 4 feet to get to that 3 foot line. At least you're gonna stop on the 3 feet away from the property line. That one. But they're not going further.
So,
So can we merge a little bit of 490 with 4260?
yep,
Maybe on accessory structures, we say no.
yep,
That's what's not getting.
right. No, we wouldn't merge accessory structures into this, just. Right, because that's the way it's written.
Says. If it's the foundation, there can't be less than whatever feet from the lot line.
Right.
So you can have the biggest you want.
Right, and this limits you. So yeah, let's talk about merging these two.
Yeah.
All right, I think we should take a break. So do you want to do, what, a 10-minute break? And then we can just see what else we can grind through? Or do you need to get going?
I mentioned
And we're here. Because we've got more to do next time, right? Or next time we're doing all the other stuff, so.
Right, so I think maybe we just grind through these last couple. There's And it's probably a good idea to table the rest of this to the next meeting, which is next Thursday. Alan, I almost called you Adam. This is why we need to stop. Do you want to entertain a motion?
I will entertain a motion on 5B to table, oh, yeah.
What I
We
said.
won't be sending anything to the planning commission from tonight. Motion,
Motion to table 5B is what you're looking for. I will make that motion.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Good. Okay, so 6A, we,
Oh, yeah, you got to vote.
oh yeah, I'm sorry. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, it's approved. So, on to 6, we mentioned that, chapter 3. We
So
discussed a
you-
little bit.
Yep, you have drafts of chapter 3. So let's start reviewing those. Hopefully we'll get to them at the meeting next week. If not, we'll pick them up the following month.
And Becky, you're gonna chair next meeting. Okay,
And so Becky, let me know when is a convenient time to meet with you and we'll walk through the process.
so section future agenda items, anybody have anything? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor?
Becky?
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none.